Good evening, everyone. It's a real privilege to join you tonight from Nowaywen, also known as Peterborough, on the traditional territory of the Mississauga Anishinaabe, to discuss the proposal of the Social Innovation Hub, one of the pillars of the CCRC refresh. So I'm going to start by briefly discussing social innovation and positioning the context of the hub within some of those broader conversations. So the Metcalf Foundation captures social innovation well by describing it as having many definitions. But at its core, it supports people and organizations to co-create, learn, adapt, and scale more effective solutions to entrenched social and environmental problems, making our human and natural systems more adaptive and resilient. So it's clear that traditional business paradigms are not advancing solutions to some of our most pressing and urgent social, environmental, and economic challenges. So that being said, there is a paradigm shift happening. Now, the shift is not new, and there's been much dedicated work over the past few decades. However, COVID-19 has accelerated these movements and philosophies of transformational change towards social enterprise and a funding and finance system that invests in social and environmental value creation over value extraction. So the landscape is changing, and we are collectively responsible for our participation in driving that transformation. Recently, the legendary Ray Bowman spoke of the realities of rural and urban communities in the next 5 years. And so according to the statistics, there will be approximately 75% replacement rate of retired people in rural areas, and it's roughly 80% replacement in urban. Over the next decade, there will be vast shifts in intergenerational wealth. These are only a few factors that will influence the labor market and changes in how public, private, and third sectors invest their resources and capital, impacting community resilience. There's also a critical need to address climate change by investing in building capacity, in research and development, and in adaptation and mitigation strategies, and great technologies. So tonight, we will discuss how we are positioning the Social Innovation Hub proposal within these broader discussions by embracing these changes, not as barriers or challenges, but as opportunities to advance transformation, inspire change, and build resilient capacity to support rural well-being and foster vibrant rural communities. So I am going to hand it over to Eric. Eric was the early champion for the Social Innovation Hub and a very passionate team member. Eric's going to talk about navigating the social purpose landscape, who the SIH, the Social Innovation Hub, aims to work with, and the mission, vision, and values. So Eric, over to you.
Thank you, Katie. So yeah, we really we want to create like that co-working space community, even like launchpad for people in business who want to change the world. We would love to create an economy that is equitable, sustainable, and most importantly, prosperous for all. We want to work with people and organizations that have a social purpose or mission. So just reading from the screen, our definition of a social purpose organization encompasses nonprofit social enterprise, charitable organizations, local projects, cooperatives, and for-profit social enterprises with social, environmental, and/or socioeconomic missions embedded into the organization's core. When it comes to our vision, mission, and values, we want to provide the creative space for collaboration, learning, and growing. We want to catalyze why am I pronouncing it wrong? Anyways, be a catalyst, sorry, for social innovation, but also fostering the collaboration by connecting social entrepreneurs, social innovators, and we really want to provide those change makers with programs, whether it's strategic advice. We will be diving into more about what our programs we want, whether it's like administration or even financial services and stuff to make this change happen. Um, and so our vision is that we want to be a connector for relationships, networks, and capacity development for these real change makers through learning, sharing, and co-creating. And these actions will support rural well-being and foster vibrant communities and inspire radical change. In terms of values, we tried our best to really tie this in really well with the CCRC. I know that we're currently going through the strategic planning and all that stuff for the CCRC. So we really wanted to try and align the Social Innovation Center with the values that are currently offered with the CCRC. And we felt the four strongest were collaboration, creativity, action, and transformation. I will now pass it over to Peter, who will dive in more on the theory of radical change. Thank you.
Thanks, Eric. And I want to thank everybody who's here. I'm really glad we've got a good showing. And as Katie mentioned off the top, this is a proposal, and we've been working on it since R2R20. And what happened at R2R20 was really instrumental in this reset of the CCRC that we're going through right now. And this is a really important exploration that we're involved in an exploration that will become a reality. And one of the things that we've talked about is change and what change looks like and what change is about. And for me, and I think I can speak for the gang, the greatest disruption in any age is changing the way we think. Also, it's tricky, it's difficult. So we came up with our own theory of radical change, and you'll hear some echoes of things that I'm sure you know and you feel. But this is a work in progress in what radical change actually is. So we start with radical change as approaching society through the same experimental process that all innovation occurs. Radical change means fundamental change. The most crucial requirement is the belief in our ability to create change and to understand that progressive change isn't coming. It's already here. What we see today is a shift in universal consciousness, some places more than others, and some people more than others. The case for radical change is an argument for the profound belief within our collective capability to be better for ourselves and better for others. One of the most compelling arguments for implementing radical change is that we can. We have lacked the communication, transportation, and energy infrastructure needed to bring about change at the scale that is necessary for so much of our history. Reminding you infinite growth on a finite planet is impossible, and our current trajectory is not sustainable with regards to consumption. By embracing necessary change, it will see more people with more access to the tools and technologies necessary to innovate. It is an all hands on deck scenario as far as we're concerned. And it's a commitment to ourselves and to our families and to our communities to build a world that allows every person to express their identity and vision within the world more freely. The Social Innovation Hub is here to participate in sustainability and success for rural communities by building a network, connecting people and ideas. We support rural change makers with the tools and skills to address social, environmental, and economic challenges and advance the systems change we need to continue to push into the 21st century. SIH is a catalyst for social innovation that cultivates a creative, inclusive, and supportive ecosystem. And the shingle that will be hung outside the door reads, "All are welcome." Why now? Well, this is from Katie. Yesterday would have been better, but we have to start somewhere. And it's true. We have to start somewhere. So this is one of our shots at the CCRC, not only to start, but to delve into it. And we're going to need support. We're going to need assistance. We're going to need guidance. We'll need mentorship. We'll need you, the people who are on this call, and many, many others, and the networks that you are connected to as well. I see that there's an opportunity for a groundswell with this hub. I see it as an opportunity for all are welcome and we mean it, and be influenced by others, not only individuals, but organizations that are also doing similar things, but also maybe doing it from a different angle. And when I think of rural, I think local, I think regional, I think provincial, I think national, and I think international. At R2R 20, and many of you were at R2Rs, we actually should probably give out stripes or stars or something for those that come to all the R2Rs. Marty, I think I'm naming you as probably the lieutenant governor here of something anyway of R2Rs. But the idea is there are good ideas all over the place, and we can share those good ideas and we can adapt or adopt them for our own communities. So within radical change, maybe radical isn't quite, maybe not even the right word. It's just change, and we have to change. I'll end my bit here with a quote from David Macaulay. It is essential to see, not merely to look, and it isn't necessary to think in a straight line to make sense. And finally, that risk can be rewarded. And I will now turn it over to Cassandra Bryant, I believe.
Thanks, Pete. It's great to see everyone tonight. Excited to be here and to be presenting the SIH. I'm presenting this slide here about what makes SIH unique. And for those who have been privy or have been part of the CCRC reset with the strategic planning, we'll see lots of connections here. And as Eric had mentioned earlier, it's important that as we move forward with the strategic reset for CCRC, these projects that we're working on, these, in a way, a flagship program here, we want to ensure that we are moving forward in the same way as the strat session that we're doing. So when we're taking a look at this in terms of what makes the SIH unique, when you're looking at the mission and vision, they are woven into all we do to support the rural well-being, foster vibrant rural communities, and inspire transformation through radical change. There's that piece of the profound belief in different ways of learning, doing, and being. That is something that I believe you've heard Pete speak about probably for a long time. I know that's something that's come out of R2R. That was R2R really when we think about it. And so that is very important for us to continue this forward. The networks and the people, we bring together people to connect, share ideas, and get to know each other. And also to know that we will create networks and connections where they don't currently exist. And that's something that we're hoping as the SIH moves forward and with the CCRC is that we know that folks can come to the Social Innovation Hub with their idea, with a desire to connect or to collaborate, and they will be welcome. There's the Rural Talks to Rural. As we know, the biannual conference about adapting ideas from one place to another, from one person to another, that could be positively impact communities. We also talk about those shareable ideas. That's a huge piece. And I feel that that's also something that's a signature to the R2R and will be seen through with the SIH. And the programs are to share and transform ideas into action. And I think that's key. Eric shared the values for the SIH: creativity, collaboration, action, and transformation. Three of those, the collaboration, creation, and action are, or creativity, those are the CCRC values. So that's very important for us, that action piece and creativity piece and the collaboration. So, and that goes through supporting the creativity that goes alongside both the ideation and action every step of the way. Thanks. And Katie, I'll pass it back to you.
Wonderful, thank you. So I'll now speak to the structure of the SIH, and I'll start with the how and the why. So the hub is built on the foundation of radical change through 4 core programs. The SIH aims to enable, connect, and inspire. So how does it work? Well, you're probably looking at that diagram and wondering, what is this? The hub encourages cross-pollination with all programs. So that means change makers are invited to and encouraged to participate in any program or multiple programs at any time. The aim is to provide opportunities that meet participants where they are, provide and amplify capacity, learning opportunities, and a space to grow and connect, and ultimately to support rural well-being, foster vibrant and resilient communities, rural communities, and inspire that radical change that we've been talking about. So why is it structured this way? As you can see at the heart, we have that radical change. Each of those 4 programs provide opportunities for participants to become change agents in the movement. In the next few slides, I'll go into more detail on all of those 4 programs, but I'll just do a very brief introduction now. The RISE program is an ideas incubator. And so this program intends to provide supports for transforming ideas into action. The Catalyst program is an accelerator that provides opportunities for community projects and social entrepreneurs to grow their project or enterprise. Thrive offers a space to learn, to connect and grow. And Hive is a space for collaboration, co-creation, and relationship building to engage in a growing ecosystem. So I'll speak to each program in more detail now, and I'm going to start with RISE. So RISE provides opportunities for rural change makers with an idea, whether that be a community member that's interested in starting a community project, or someone interested in starting a new social enterprise, taking their idea into a viable project. RISE is open to slow growth enterprise, which means that there are no time restrictions to access the program. So RISE meets change makers where they are in the ideation process and does not rush it. Access to these supports is really at the participants' own pace. And ultimately, the goal of the RISE program is to help shape ideas into an actionable plan. So Catalyst is an accelerator program. What this means is that there will be time-bound cohort programs that move participants from an actionable plan through the business planning process, skill development, which can include financial literacy, to developing impact measurement frameworks, and support for engaging in investments. This could be impact investing or angel investing, and access to pitch events. So in keeping with one of our core pillars at the CCRC and ensuring an inclusive opportunity for all, there will be no age restrictions on Catalyst programs. So I'll note here too that there are a few differences between RISE and Catalyst, if you were wondering. RISE is for idea generation. There are no time restrictions on the programs. Catalyst is for taking an actionable plan and moving it into the growth stage. And so this will be done through those cohort programs, and there will be those time restrictions on those cohort programs. Change makers do not need to participate in RISE before Catalyst, or conversely, change makers that did participate in RISE do not need to move into the Catalyst program. However, all options are open and welcomed and encouraged. Thrive is an open space for learning, to connect and to grow. So the intent for Thrive will be to provide opportunities for change makers to access training and skill and professional development. So as noted on the slide, that can include access to grant writing skills, to some of those financial literacy skills, to QuickBooks or understanding taxes, to coding and website development and communications, and in particular, learning how to create your organization's narrative. So those are just some examples of how Thrive can provide some skills and knowledge development for participation or for participants. And the opportunities are obviously not limited to that list. We're thinking about them all the time. Thrive will not have age restrictions. It will be open to all participants. So it is also important to note here that there are opportunities for partnerships or alliances to provide professional development for charitable, nonprofit, and mission-based enterprise practitioners. And this, of course, is where the Blick Club will live. Okay, so Hive. And Hive is the 4th program. And Hive will support the mentorship and network development piece. The intent here is to connect, engage, and grow the ecosystem so that participants in the programs will come back, they will mentor, they'll co-create knowledge and create workshops based on their experience. This is a space to respectfully engage, reach out and have open dialogue across many different market segments and sectors and demographics on important issues. So this is the current conceptual model that we're looking at, what we're working with right now. It's designed to have feedback loops, and this connects each program with the intent to inform program delivery on continuous improvements, on measurement. So are we doing what we intended to do? And are we using our resources efficiently and effectively? The aim here is to be consistently evaluating and learning and adjusting to the needs of both the participants and to ensure that the hub is in alignment with its mission, vision, and values, and of course, with the CCRC. So our next steps will be to take a deeper dive into the analysis of the landscape. We have our first draft of the political, economic, sociocultural, technological, legal, and environmental and ethical, the PESTLE analysis, and a strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats analysis. So the intent for the PESTLE is to consider those macro environmental factors. And the SWOT is used as a secondary strategic analysis tool. And so then that SWOT piece then interprets those macro environmental factors, identifies factors for strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities and threats for our internal focus. And we'll be working away on the analysis, using these tools for analysis prior to completing a business plan. And once we've engaged with stakeholders to analyze some of the details, using these tools, we'll be ready to start our business planning process, which will be absolutely essential for the informed and strategic development of the SIH. And we're also examining the development of a community investment program. And we look forward to engaging those in the social finance and impact investing sector, in the foundation sector, and community development to economic development to further understand what this program might look like and how it could work within the SIH. So I will just wrap up the presentation there and direct the rest of our conversation tonight to focus on your reflections on the theory of radical change and the structure of the hub, and of course invite you to share your much valued input as we go through this process.
Thanks, Katie. It's great. So, thoughts, reflections on what you've heard. Yeah, Janet.
Yeah, I'll start. I asked one question in the chat, but I'm going to go into the way of. On the second slide, you had mentioned the way of learning, doing, and being. And so it gets a lot. I'm so appreciative of seeing this in draft stages. So yeah, it's profound beliefs in different ways of learning, doing, and being. So I'm curious about, is that the ordering of importance, which is learning, doing, and being? So it means we learn first, and then we do, and then we find out if we're being. And so my curiosity is whether we've checked that with ancient wisdom. And the reason I asked the question is I've been involved with a program with the Pachamama Alliance, and it's all about social change. And one of their programs is on climate. And when they bring in their Indigenous people, they start with, everybody's like focused on doing something. And he tells us basically to step back and look at being first before you get into next. So our first, they would say, he says that our first priority is to look at the way we want to be. And then we get into doing. So looking at those words, yeah, I was just wondering if we've done the check, or if that's priority, or if that's the prioritization, if we've really looked at it. And I just want to get the commentary.
Thank you. And for my part, no, we hadn't. In fact, we sort of see them happening when they happen. But I think the way you've put it is quite fine, I think. I don't know what others think about that, but I remember Leroy Little Bear talking about a need to reflect and to be when he spoke at Art 20, and words do matter, language does matter. So I think you've raised a really good point. I don't know if others want to weigh in on that, but I think that's well said, Janet. Thanks.
And another reference would be Joanna Macy's work. And she's done a lot on radical change, and she starts with way of being. And then things go from there.
Thank you. Carlene, how does this hit you out in Alberta?
There's lots here. I've been making notes, so I'll probably send you a follow-up email of organizations and different things.
Thank you.
I think what strikes me, though, I guess the biggest takeaway I would have is, I guess I'm in communications, so I always think of who this is meant for. And so I think from a, more an arts, creatives standpoint, I think that they would take this and run with it. If it's more on the rural development side, and you're dealing in rural communities, I think it would be really helpful if there was a component of showing the organizations how to co-create. So when you were presenting, I was thinking, well, I think of some of the rural organizations I know of, and they just don't know how to, like that, just like that whole idea. And so I don't know if that might already be part of what you're thinking, but that would be some feedback.
Well, I like that, and no, in fact, we're looking for guidance from you tonight, and we'll continue this process. Really, we're opening it up now to others, and no, I think that's interesting. I don't know, Katie, you want to weigh in on that?
That's very interesting. Thank you for both of your comments. I appreciate that. As we go through this process and engage, we are looking for that valuable input and where the gaps are, and how we can strengthen. So I appreciate that. Thank you.
And you send that email, Carney. Brian.
Oh, good. All right, I'm unmuted. So 3 thoughts. The first one is rural ways of learning, thinking, and doing. I don't know much about 4-H, but it strikes me from what I know that they're an organization that is very much rooted in those things, although I'm not sure if they would see themselves as agents of radical change. It might be persuaded. My second thought, which is something I posted into the chat box as well, is that when you're talking about different ways of learning, there is a body of knowledge in the field of psychology about multiple intelligence. It's like useful to us, help describe what those ways of learning are, and some people would suggest they grow out of being and turn into doing. And then my final comment would be on whether or not we want to put these things in a series or not. I would I've read many existentialists at one point in my life, and they said, well, some of them said, to be is to do. So I'll leave you with that.
Thank you. Great. Marty, from your point of view, personally and professionally, what are you thinking?
I like the idea, very intriguing. Again, Peter, anything focused on rural and thinking differently, open to all those conversations. One thing that comes to mind is simple question, might be an obvious answer, I'm not sure, but with the hub, is this looking to do like a virtual hub, or will it be building a building where people would actually come to and stay? So that's just one question I have. And and for me, I'm always thinking about the long-term sustainability. What does that look like? And I think you've already mentioned that one of the key components of that will be the business plan. And then I think once that's done, then I know myself, that's where you'll probably all fit together better for me, and probably more questions arise from that.
Great. I will take the first one on, Marty, your first question about will it be virtual? And I mean, we're living in, as you know, and you're living in it as well, such a unique time in our history as human beings on Earth. Virtual has been the way. Here we are virtual tonight. This could have been a town hall meeting, and I guess in a way it is, but it's a virtual one. I think we're now in the land of hybrid. I think we will be having virtual and in person. And the next R2R, for example, we're planning in 22 will be a hybrid, barring another pandemic or some other crazy thing that comes down the pipe. Lake Huron comes to Blythe or something like that. But so as far as will people be coming to the hub, it's certainly the vision would be that we would have a physical location. That physical location would be in Blythe. We do see this as a national organization, so that the mingling is really important to us, to have people come from different constituencies. And partnerships are not going to all be local. There's going to be partnerships and collaborations with organizations that are either doing similar things or see a way that they can bolt on to us and we can bolt on to what they're doing. But yes, there will be a physical place. And that is within our action plan. It's not within this plan right here, but there will be a physical plant for it. But we will be definitely using the virtual, the technical as we go forward. And the other two pillars I'll just mention for those that are learning about the CCRC for the first time. The other two pillars will be a learning commons, which is an educational component, sharing ideas and stories and bringing people together on that in that way. And then the third piece, Carlene, which is of interest to you, I hope, a national rural organization community network, so that we're in regular contact with each other, talking about things like SIH or what you're doing in your community. And is there ways that we can bolt on, which is an idea that Jim Lynn presented to us probably about 6 or 7 months ago. Is it necessary that we reinvent the wheel every time if there are other organizations that are already doing it? And I think that that's well, in the consumption way, it's a smart way to go. I think it's an environmentally friendly way to go. So that's an answer, hopefully, to your first question, Marty. Stay tuned. And we'll be coming to Libro, no doubt. So, but anyway, well, we have a plan for a physical plant. What was the second question?
No, it wasn't a question, just more a comment, just the importance of the long-term sustainability of it. And I think that's where the importance of the business plan will come in.
Yeah. I don't know, Cassandra, do you want to weigh in on that, on long-term sustainability and how you're seeing it right now?
Yeah, I think we're working through it at this moment, knowing that we are, as we're saying, we're proposing radical change here and thinking about business differently. There is some exploration and also some testing, if you will, that we have to do, but knowing that we have to be sustainable. And so the business plan, and as we move forward, the strategic plan and the partners and the collaborators, I think will all play a part in it. It's not going to be CCRC all on its own kind of doing all of this. We are hoping to work with many others. And because of that, I feel that that's going to be an important piece for that sustainability factor. So there's that piece there. And the other one, if it's okay to just swing back to Carlene's suggestion for the document, which I thought was really important just in terms of addressing rural communities and looking at rural development. And thank you, Carlene, for responding to me in the chat there about, is it just co-create or collaborate as well? And so I think that's really an important piece right there for us as we take the SIH back and we look at it, but also for the CCRC as well, when we think about that, when we're looking at those resources for those practical steps to get on that path there. So it is learning by doing and by being, and it's also walking the talk in that way, right? So when we're looking at offering resources or helping others, it's also knowing that we also are seeking resources and support and collaboration. So yeah, so just those were fantastic, and so thank you for that information. And I'm hoping we can write this piece down so we can bring it back to our document here.
And there's lots of great stuff coming in. Janet, thank you. That's great. I don't know that organization. Brian's written things as well. Carlene, you have. So all of that. Is there a way to save? I mean, here, my technical ignorance, you don't want me in where the ship is being kind of organized out in the deck somewhere. But is there a way to save all this chat business? There is a way, isn't there? Carlene, please tell me. What do I do? Do I have to hit a button or?
When you go to download the video, if it's in the cloud, you'll have 3 files and one of them will be the chat. So you'll have it all in a text file. Right.
There's the SIH in working right now, right in front of us, right there. There's a voice from Alberta telling a fellow from Ontario. Heather, nice to meet you. I haven't yet read your paper. I'm looking forward to doing that and look forward to meeting you. I'd like to hear your reflections on it. I do want to talk about the programs as well, but I'm just curious about general thoughts on what you've heard tonight.
Yeah, well, thank you for the chance to be here for sure. This is all kind of new. What comes to mind for me is I'm located in Guelph. And to what degree is this similar to or different to the 10C creating space? I just pulled up it's like a 10C organization in Guelph, and it's a shared space. I just pulled up the thing. That members will inspire people to break new ground through collaborations fueled by effective relationships, entrepreneurial spirit, and dynamic research. Just wondering to what degree this is similar or different to that, or if you're aware of that effort.
I'm not aware of 10C. Is anyone on the team aware of what's going on there? Al, do you know that?
Yeah, I know a little bit about 10C, and I've had a number of students that have worked out of there or have gone on to work there. There are certainly similarities in terms of mission. To be honest, Heather, I never really thought about 10C. And I don't live in Guelph, so it's not a living presence for me. Most of their focus, I believe, is mostly on Guelph and parts of Wellington County. Although I think one of the things that my sense is that they struggle with reaching out to the rural region. So most of their work tends to be fairly urban centric. And it's hard to connect with North Wellington and those areas, but they would be definitely worth having a conversation with Pete. And I think Joy Sammy is involved. Do you know Heather, Joy?
Yeah, I do know Joy.
She's still involved with 10C?
She's tangentially involved. Let me just pull up. I know, let's see who.
One of my master's students, Arvinder Kanu, is involved with 10C, I believe.
I think the person to connect with is Julia Grady.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know her, but yeah.
Yeah.
So when you get back from Alberta, Pete, it'd be worthwhile for you to have a conversation with them, and if you get a chance to even go in and sit down with them face to face if we're at that point.
Yeah, it's right across from City Hall, so
yeah.
it's easy to find.
Great, I can go and talk to the mayor while I'm there. No, that's great. Thanks, Heather. I will. I'll hook up, or I'll send a note off Julia Grady for sure. Nolan, how does this fit into your game?
Howdy.
Hey.
1 second here. I'll see if my video works. Oh, it does. Well, would you look at that? Well, I was listening to the presentation. I was like, well, that could be helpful. Oh, that next slide. That sounds incredibly helpful. I can definitely draw upon those resources. So for someone who aspires to be a social innovator in a one manner of speaking, this is definitely something I could see myself resources drawing upon that. So yeah, it's all very interesting stuff. I just had a question. Is there a specific, I don't know, how do I word this? In a specific concerted effort to focus on marginalized communities and marginalized creators and innovators? Because so far I haven't seen anything specifically targeting that. Like I know I understand that it's in the ethos of community change and inspiring and build transformative learning. But is there a plan in place to target and build up communities that have traditionally been underrepresented in our society?
The shingle says all are welcome, and I think that we take it very seriously. So I would say yes, but it doesn't mean that it's happening. I mean, right now we're at this proposal stage, but I think it's really good that you're bringing it up. Katie, I don't know if you want to weigh in on that.
Sorry, it took me a minute to get to my mute button. No, that's an excellent point. And I'll echo what Pete said. Yes, but we're still in the process of planning. So that yes, will be definitely a part of the discussion and the planning process as we move through it. But thank you for that comment.
I figured as much. I just wanted to put it out there.
No, it's great. There's a scientist. There's this other thing that I'm working on, this Curiosity Collective. There's a scientist who just came to the University of Toronto, and within her opening remarks, she's a scientist, I think a physicist. She said, if we're not bringing everyone along with us, then we've failed. And she was talking about physics, and she said it has to be explained, it has to be understood, there has to be a way to do this. We're losing minds, we're excluding people from the process. And I feel the same way about this. And I think, are we going to be all things to all people? No, but I think we strive for a welcoming environment. But we're going to need guidance, Nolan, and you may be that person. You may be that person who goes, well, actually, you haven't, and here's 3 groups that I think you should be working with, or at least you should invite. They don't see themselves reflected in the work of the Social Innovation Hub. So I think it's a learn by doing process for us. I think we have connections in our own networks, but there are lots of networks that we have absolutely no contact with. So I think one of the things we're striving for with SIH is that we expand our networks, and we actually go through the process of seeing differently as well, of different ways of being, doing that. This isn't us from a mountaintop. This is us in the mix, in the soup, in the forest with everybody else. So I think the experience, I hope anyway, is something about learning, and for all of us all the time.
Okay, thanks for answering. I like that little reference to the forest, Pete. That's very relevant to my work.
Yes. I'd like to direct our attention to the Thrive and the Hive and the Catalyst and Rise, and what people's thoughts are on that. Yeah, maybe that's a good slide. It gives you kind of an overview. Or if you don't have thoughts, that's fine. But if you do have thoughts on this, or is there something that you feel is missing from this, as Nolan pointed out, or is there something that you're not clear on, or something that you need, or there's an opportunity for us to shape it a little bit differently?
Yeah, I'll comment, Pete. I like it. It's a process. I'm not sure I like this particular diagram. I actually like the other diagram better.
Which one?
It looked more like it's been a long day. Yeah, that one.
This one. Okay, right.
Yeah, I think but what's interesting is this the process you're living? Is this the process that the Social Innovation Hub is living right now in their development of the Social Innovation Hub? So that was one thing that struck me, is that this is a process that the CCRC is going through. So we're living the process. We're not just talking about the process, and we need to be living it. And I'm not quite sure how intentional reflection is built into that as we go through this process and sort of developing our learning from it. And I just want to back up to a bit that what Nolan said. And I think one of the things, I think what he said was really important. And it made me think of all welcome. But all welcome isn't sufficient to get everybody there. So maybe it needs to be all invited, all welcome. Because there's people who would not see themselves as being part of this. And the one challenge within all welcome and looking at radical transformation, that brings in a really interesting possibility for dialogue and conflict, and hopefully working through conflict. I think there's some really interesting perspectives out there that would not necessarily be, certainly not in agreement with the way I look at the world. And so I think that the idea of sort of a dynamic dimension and an organic dimension to this. So in some sense, the CCRC and the Social Innovation Hub and what you're doing is really an ongoing process of self-organization. So it's continuously changing. But this process is the core that's driven through those changes, both organizationally and the partnerships that we're working with and the programs. So having said that, I don't know if any of that makes any sense to anybody. I'm not even sure it makes sense to me. But I like this model much better than the other one.
Great. It made sense to me, Al. In fact, I loved your statement that we're actually going through Rise, Catalyst, Thrive, and Hive. And I would say that this is a hive we're having right now. And I think the ideation stage, the seed stage, we will be going back to it after this conversation, and certainly looking at it from the ideas that are being offered and how that impacts the document. We will move forward, but I think it's important to reflect on the comments that have been made. And I keep looking over at the chat, and there's just some really valuable stuff that's being posted there, not only with organizations, but comments and thoughts from Janet, from Brian, well, actually from everybody. And I think as far as this is concerned, I hadn't thought of it in those terms. I guess I hope to rise, catalyze, thrive, and hive for the rest of my life. And I think in some ways, on a personal level, I hope to do that. But also, I think on a professional level for the SIH, if we're not going through the process of this, of ideas leading into strategy growth and leading into creating thought, being a part of thought leaders and networking with and other collaborators, I would say at the heart of the CCRC, and I think Cassandra said this, that's what we're trying to achieve there. That this is a center. I think you called it a collaborative. That the CCRC is a collaborative, an opportunity to bring together a lot of people that are doing different things within their own communities, and again to share those ideas. So the conceptual model, I just had never thought of it that way, Al. I really like that. So thank you.
Yeah, just one more thing. One of the challenges for any organization, I think, is to remain open to change. And often organizations get locked into this is what we do, rather than sort of being organic and continuing to evolve. So I think the CCRC, at least in my mind, aspires to continue to evolve and find different ways of doing the work and discovering things about the organization itself as we move through this process, and the people that we're engaged with. This is a good example of learning from others. And people sort of bringing ideas and different ways of sort of seeing things. So anyways, that's enough from me.
No, that was great. I loved it. And Nolan, that great. Yes, you're absolutely right. And the goal here is to open it up to all. And so we have to figure out how to do that, and that we have to do that by doing it. by actually doing it. Right now, we're just talking about it, and it's a very different. Talking about dog sledding and doing dog sledding are two very, very different activities, as a musher once told me. Okay, so anyone else comments on Rise, Catalyst, Thrive, Hive that they'd like to share? Heather? No. Janet? You're good? Okay. Carlene, are you feeling thrivey or risey? Or are you catalyst?
Getting back to the diagram, I just feel I'm not sure if it's like if I say like a Venn diagram where everything overlaps, I feel that might represent what you're trying to achieve more, rather than it looks too linear to me.
Mm-hmm.
But, and I don't want to get into too specific, but
Yep.
I also thought, oh my gosh, you guys are, so many creative people, it could just be beautiful. Like, I would love to see how people would interpret that,
You mean this conceptual model right here? They would look at it and
Yeah.
go, okay.
Yeah.
Marty, when you look at this, what do you see?
I actually like this. I see a step-by-step approach. Step by step, it's thought out, and even as you're going through the process, the opportunity to continually check back, look back. Have we done it correct? Like, just an opportunity to take a step back, rethink, double check. Again, I'm sample size of one. I do like the way it's laid out.
Nice. I'm going to come back to you, Carlene, because I think you're onto something. I know you're onto something, for God's sake. No, but you mentioned earlier, and I think it might be connected to that comment. I'm making this jump myself, and you may go, okay, you're not listening to me, you're not hearing me. If this was for creative organizations, creative people, then you're seeing that, okay, they would get this, they would run with it. But you mentioned earlier that that some of the organizations that in your rural world don't know, they wouldn't know how to make that step. Can you just talk a little bit about that, and about how Green Hectares, for example, because I know you're involved in something similar. I mean, so could you just take me through that process with you folks?
Well, and we worked in rural communities, so I'm trying to I could see potential of taking these ideas, it's almost like a framework, and working with some communities, but I couldn't see this idea working with every community just yet. So Wendy, who also works with me with Green Hectares, happens to be my mother-in-law too. She does other work, and she works, it's called Unstoppable Conversations, and they work really intensely with some of these community groups and municipalities to actually overcome organizational challenges. So it's actually getting, to the heart of a conversation. I see this model working, like they could go basically through Unstoppable Conversations, and then they could use this framework, because the mindset would be open to it. If you want to make this the seed of change for a rural community group or community in general, I think the language might need to be more gentle. The idea of radical change, that's a, that's a big word, or a big couple of words. Rural people are dealing with so much. It's just this really broad spectrum that they're dealing with that I had no idea. I didn't grow up on a farm, but now that I'm here, it was a huge cultural shift for me. So it's just, I can't even explain it. I guess I could if I had lots and lots of time, but we don't. But just understand that there's a cultural thing, a cultural shift that you will have to overcome with this, and there will be maybe a different way to approach rural versus creatives.
No, that's interesting. I mean, I think about that conversation that we had at Green Hectares last week, and one of the comments was it's not fear of change, it is the death of what's known, and then the concern about what they don't know, what's coming in. And I hear you that within certain cultures, then this might, they might not get it. They might just think, I don't see myself fitting into that, and that's certainly not what we're striving for. We want people to see themselves reflected in the material and in what we're trying to achieve here.
And I would say, if this is the model that the group really feels strongly about, you have to put a stake in the ground somewhere. I'm not saying to not do this, but it might define who you work with. Maybe like I can think of a couple of communities in Alberta that would be primed for this. They would just be, they've been doing amazing work, and they would be, oh my gosh, they would take this and know exactly what you're talking about and run with it. And then there's others that would go, what? Like, so, that maybe they're 10 years away from doing something like this.
That's
so just to have that awareness that if you want to target everybody, you might need different versions, I guess. But
no, that's great. No, that's great. Well considered. So thank you for that. And I think in some ways we'll need to get not only this proposal into action. Once we get it into action, then the activity will be the proof. Like, if in a way, like all of our discussion about, we'll know what the structure is, and they may understand that they're in Thrive and Hive and Catalyst. But in fact, they see, oh, I see this is about economic development within the community. I understand how I could bolt onto that. So it is worth my while. No, I think that's really well said, Carlene. So thanks, Al.
I think Carlene's making a really important point about this particular pillar. But we have to remember that this needs to be placed in the context of the other two pillars. And the other two pillars are actually entry points in. So when I look at the three pillars, I really see the community network that leads to the learning commons, that leads to the social innovation hub. So we need to really be aware of how the three pillars are actually integrated and come together, and will serve different constituencies at different places in their own community or personal developmental journey. And so I wouldn't see necessarily everybody wanting to jump into this particular program, but through the other programs that they're exposed to, they may then be enticed to enter into this type of process. So I just remind us to keep the whole in mind while we're talking about the pieces. That's all.
Well, and it may actually, I'll just to take both your and Carlene's comments there, it may behoove us actually to do when we make the presentation, that we talk about the learning commons and we talk about the national network of rural communities, that maybe that's something that not to be necessarily built into this, but be a part of the discussion. I think that's a good idea. Okay, no, that was good.
So Peter,
yeah, Janet.
Just picking up with what Carlene says, and a few other things in the chat. Language is really important because it's language that reaches people, whether it's the national network community, the community of practice network, whether it's the learning commons, or whether it is the hub, because they will, whatever hooks them, they're going to go beyond that, and they're going to say, so is it reaching me in a way that I would like to spend my time there, or not just spend my time, but actually dive in and lean into it, right? So there is something about there's something about level of language, because we're all here and we're all very, very learned people. And we use a language that local communities may not use. So how do we reach them at their level? And, I'm reminded that sometimes we talk about it in terms of a grade 8-9 language, but it's reaching them that way. With all of our change concepts, but reaching them in a way that they're going to take whatever one of those. So the smorgasbord, if they're into community of practice and figuring out, well, maybe I want to hear what's going on. I'm from the East and I want to hear what's going on in the West. It's great. I'll be connected to somebody because I've been isolated for so long, right? But the language is really important. So that's a big takeaway for me.
Well, that's great. Thank you. Where are we at here now? Brian. Okay, and there's Nolan. Any other thoughts, reflections on, because I think this is really, really valuable. And I don't know if at this point, Cassandra and Katie and Eric, if where you're at with everything you've heard tonight, perhaps that might be a place to stop in. Katie, how's this hitting you? How are you doing with it?
I'll agree. It's very valuable. You know, I think we've had our eyes on this for a few months now, so it's really good to have a different perspective and people bringing different experiences and different lenses to it. So we appreciate that very much. Just a piece on the cultural aspects of the rural communities and how that the hub may not align. This is an important part of our pestle analysis and the sociocultural piece. So that's a really valuable comment that we're going to now plug in and hopefully reach out and maybe chat with you a bit more once we take our ideas back and refined some of these pieces and go through the rest of the next iteration of this process. So and thank you too for the comments on the language. I haven't been in the chat yet, so I haven't been able to go through some of those comments, but thank you for the comment on language, because you're right, language is very important, and that wasn't something that I was thinking about, so I appreciate that. Eric, Cassandra?
Yeah, no, I just wanted to also say thank you everyone again for taking an hour out of your time to listen and give feedback, and we really appreciate it. It's a team effort, and yeah, we really appreciate the feedback. Definitely love having new eyes looking at it, different perspectives, because yeah, us looking at it for almost half a year now, it just it gives us a whole new perspective, a new way of looking at things that we're so invested in, that it's like, oh yeah, seeing it a different way. And so I'm hoping that we can take all this feedback and critique and really just take this off the ground and get it going. I know that we're all very anxious too, and so yeah, we really appreciate it, so thank you.
Yeah, no, thank you as well. I don't really have much to add. I think the piece on the rural development piece, on thinking about organizations with what Carleen was saying is very important. So that's one of the pieces I'm definitely taking away, and then we'll be looking at this SIH as well as the CCRC for that piece there. So thanks to everyone.
And from my outpost, I'm in a sauna right now. I refuse to use air conditioning, and it is unbelievably hot in my little area. So before I expire, I want to say thank you as well to everybody that came. I really appreciate it. I do have a question for everybody that's on the call. Would you be all right with us connecting with you in the not too distant future with either another draft or as we work through this, getting on to the next step? Would you be willing to participate in something akin, hopefully a little further down the road? Thumbs up from Heather. Okay, all right. Oh, here we are. Okay, we're all met. Carleen, can we call on you? Very good. Okay, Brian, are you? Various ways of thinking. Yes, thumbs up. Okay, very good. Marty? Oh, Marty, thumbs up. Okay, right on. Okay, and Janet, how are you doing? Okay, well, here now. Okay, I can do something. And Nolan, I think you're. Oh, very good. Okay, thumbs up. All right, so I can do this. Oh yes, yes, ladies and gentlemen, I have the clapping hands, but they don't make any noise. I mean, the thumbs up never makes any noise. The clapping hands think they got to get an audio component for that. I'm going to write a letter to Zoom. A letter. Yes, good luck with that. I still read a newspaper as well, but my son still talks to me, so I'm straddling 3 centuries of life here. Anyway, this was really useful for me, and I know it was for the team. I mean, we're excited by this project. We believe in it. We believe in really this whole reset with the CCRC, and we're going to get this done. Like, this is going to happen, and we're going to do it. But we're definitely not going to do it alone. We are not going to do it in isolation. And so your comments really, I can't thank you enough on an August night, having you come out and offer your comments, really echoing what Eric said. Really means a lot to us. So we'll be back in touch. As the man says, you can run, but you can't hide, because we know where you live. We have addresses, and we'll see you again. I think that's it. Does the gang of 4 want to hang in when everyone says adios? Okay.
Right, Pete, I noticed that there was 2 other questions actually in the chat about, Janet asked for the 4 programs if there was any time expectation to complete them. And also Brian asked how it differs from other social enterprises, like one in New York City and one in Quebec as well. I wasn't sure if we were able to answer those right now, or touch upon it on some other time, or I think those were the only 2 questions by the looks of it. But
there were a lot of great comments. I don't know. Again, we're learning as we go, Brian. I don't know the center in New York. This is going to be rural, which I suppose makes it a bit different. Although we've been approached to collaborate with Artscape in Toronto, which is an interesting opportunity. They're really interested in rural. Artscape are, because they've got a whole reset that they're doing, and then we didn't really touch on it, but and they are involved in creatives. That's kind of, but it's also entrepreneurship. And we've been asked to participate in something called a Springboard. So working with urban organizations, working with organizations that are doing this, I can see that being a part of the community network, Brian, and then also learning what they're doing. So I don't think we're so much reinventing as we are participating in our own rural way, and hopefully making connections and making impact, economic, social, cultural impact alongside the community members that we're working with, wherever we're working with them. Don't know if that answers that question. And what was the other one, Eric?
Just about seeing the 4 programs. What is the time expectation to complete all 4 levels?
Katie, do you want to dive in on that?
Sure. Yeah, so there's no time expectation on the programs except for the Catalyst program, and that's because they would be cohort programs that would be, we haven't discussed a timeline. Usually they're about, I don't know, is it 6 to 8 weeks or something like that. But in terms of accessing any of the other programs, there, as we've discussed so far, there would be no time restrictions on any of them.
Okay, well, merci beaucoup. And we will see you all on the flip side, as the rock producer says. But Eric and Al and Cassandra, if you could just hang in. Heather, I look forward to having a chat with you sometime soon. Thank you, Brian, Carlene, Janet. Thank you, Marty. Thank you. Okay, here we are. Okay. Thoughts? How do you feel that went? Katie, I'll start with you.
Oh, do you want to stop recording, Pete?